DESIblitz.com.
Venice has lost its freedom, drives us like racks down the rough tide of power whilst no hold left to save us from destruction. Crush the vile globe into its first confusion. Scorch it with elemental flames to one cursed cinder, and all those little creepers in called men burn, burn to nothing, but let Venice burn hotter than all the rest.
Hi, this is Prasanna Puwanarajah. I'm directing Venice Preserved at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford-Upon-Avon, and you are watching me on DESIblitz.com.
Hi, I'm Natalie Dew. I'm currently in Venice Preserved, and you are watching me on DESIblitz.com.
Hi, I'm Les Dennis. I'm in Venice Preserved at the RSC, and you're watching me now on DESIblitz.com. It's a great watch. Keep watching.
Tell us a little bit about Venice Preserved. What is it about?
So Venice Preserved is a political thriller that is written in 1680, but we've updated it basically to the 1980s. And it's about a married couple at the edge of a revolution. And the husband in the couple, Jaffier, decides to join the revolution because he believes that it's going to change their failed state. And it pulls their marriage apart. And he has his best friend who is also in this revolution. And their relationship also comes under huge strain, and basically it all kind of goes south from there.
Reading the play, you have a feeling of being in a perpetual night. Tell us more.
Well, it's like when you listen to music or you read books, look at kind of images, you generate feelings, don't you, in kind of like senses of like openness or pressure. And there's something about this play, I don't know if I can really put my finger on it, but there is something about the experience of reading this play that makes you feel like the whole thing is happening at night. All happens over 3 days. It feels quite airless, it feels incredibly intense as well. And I don't know quite why that is. I mean, every time anyone mentions a time that they're going to meet someone, it's always at midnight. People are always like kind of meeting in the middle of the night, like spies on bridges, talking about nefarious things. So it has a kind of quality of something like Homeland or Blade Runner. You never feel like the sun comes out. So it fits. So it fits the kind of template of the kind of noir genre.
I play Priuli, who is one of the senators of Venice, and he has a daughter, Belvedere, played by Jodie McNee. And Belvedere, has in secret married Jaffier, played by Michael Grady Hall. And this has enraged Priuli because he saw Jaffier as somebody that he could mentor and help to be a shining light in Venice. But he can't believe that they've deceived him and gone behind his back. So he, at the beginning of the play, throws them out of their house. He kind of disowns his daughter and says that's it. And then the conspiracy that Jaffier and Pierre and the other conspirators cook up all happens, and then this thrilling piece of theatre just takes off. So I start the play off with Mike, and it's great to get out there and just have this really angry scene that kicks the play off. So I'm loving playing Priuli. It's something that people know me for comedy, but in this play there isn't a hint of comedy for me. It's all tragedy.
So Aquilina is a courtesan. So she is very high up in the underground world of Venice. And one of her most famous employees, or someone who employs her actually, is Antonio, who's one of the leaders of the Senate. So she looks after quite a lot of the high politicians of Venice. She's badass as well. She's really badass.
Besides being badass, playing the courtesan, are there any dance sequences?
Yes, so we have a voguing sequence, which is so brilliant because everyone's in such massive shoulder pads that it's probably worth the price of the ticket alone just to see that. But I don't do dancing as such. I'm trying to sort of say it without giving loads away. It's more physical than that and more naughty than that. Yeah, it's super dark. It's super dark and super kinky.
Talking of Blade Runner, your version is Blade Runner meets Gotham. Could you expand on this?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in the 80s, and so I was just watching cartoons basically rather than reading as a kid. I was watching cartoons and watching cricket. That was what I did. And so when I kind of graduated to films, it was essentially sci-fi that was the genre that I really understood. It took me ages to kind of get into the notion of just watching social realism or watching drama, because I'd never really done that as a kid. And so there's something about those two city-states that feel like they map onto what Venice feels like. Both of them are wealthy but crumbling. There are kind of political power structures that are quite morally suspect. And there are protagonists at the heart of those spaces that are not necessarily pure or good. So they have complexities and moral complexities, but they are trying to rise and they're trying to better their lot and they're trying to better the world around them. But none of that happens easily. So they both feel like they spiritually feel like this play. And also there is that other thing, like I was saying to you, about the play kind of feeling like it all happens at night. I don't know, that in a way the play feels like a very distant relative of those worlds. And it was also a kind of an interesting way to talk about the play when communicating the idea to creative colleagues. So people immediately have in their mind the kind of world that we're trying to create. We can put together reference images and materials and music, playlists, all sorts of things to give us a sense of the kind of the space around the play, and give us ideas and thoughts and starting points to move towards production.
What attracted you to this play?
Well, I think, funnily enough, it was my niece Jodie McNee, who's playing Belvedere, who called me in January and said, look, our director, Prasanna, is looking for a Liverpool actor to play my dad. And she said, do you think so-and-so would do it? Do you think so-and-so would do it? And I went, hello? I'm here, I'm a Liverpool actor, I'm your uncle, what do you think? So she suggested that I meet Prasanna. I went to meet him, and it all happened from there. So what attracted me when I read it was the fact that for me, it's classical theatre, which I haven't done a lot of. You know, as I say, people expect me to be comic in a play. So I'm just hoping to surprise some people with it. So that's what excited me about it. It's a really interesting part. Only 3 or 4 scenes, but they are really crucial and important scenes in the play.
It's a lot of the characters are it's so hugely about love for people, love for your country, love for preserving something that's rotting and trying to save something. I think what's amazing about the play is that it's so human and weirdly like an episode of Black Mirror. Like it's dark and interesting and bleak, but so intriguing that you just sort of stay with it.
Coming from a Sri Lankan background, do you draw any inspiration from your background?
Well, like I say, I mean, for me, like the fact that I grew up in the 80s as a kind of first, well, you know, as a third culture kid, basically, meant that I found it quite tricky to tap directly into my parents' cultural space, because I grew up in a not particularly Sri Lankan area. I grew up in the middle of Hampshire, and you know, some of my cousins went to, you know, Tamil school, stuff like that, and they had a kind of cultural space around them. Some of them went to school with like other Sri Lankan kids, or certainly other kids from the subcontinent, and I really didn't. So I actually found it quite good in a way to, I mean, this is in retrospect, to kind of escape into science fiction spaces and like imaginative spaces and cartoon spaces where you weren't potentially seen in the same way, you weren't judged in the same way. I was sort of obsessed with a character called Data from Star Trek The Next Generation because he wasn't human, and he seemed to be sort of so curious about the world and quite naive about it all. So in a sense, like the world of this play comes from my response to not really having like a major cultural link. Of course, there is all sorts of interesting stuff in this play about family and about the notion of family duty and the weights that those can place on young people, the expectations, that are universal, and also feel like they have rhythms in my kind of heritage space, I guess. Like I kind of recognise some of those things. So, yeah, little bits of influence from kind of all kinds of places. Ends up being quite magpie-ish, I think, being a director.
Is this your first tragic role that you're playing, or have you previously played any?
No, I haven't. I haven't played any tragedy before. No, it's my first one. Although some people might have come to see me and thought that's a tragedy that he's in that.
And how does that transition take place from doing comedy to a role like this, which is quite tragic?
Well, I think all comics are good actors if they're given the chance to, and I think the tragedy is the flip side of the coin. So if you can play comedy, I believe that you can play tragedy, as long as you're not somebody who is desperately, once they get in front of an audience, thinks, I've got to make them laugh. If you can resist that as an actor and you can get inside your character, then, as I say, it is the counterpoint to comedy. It's the flip side of the coin.
How hard has it been to characterize your role?
Quite hard, actually, I'd say, because she's such a powerful character. I don't normally play, or I haven't always played sort of characters of such high status, and she is so ruthless, which is not something that comes naturally to me. I'm more of a people pleaser, I think. So having to sort of tap into that completely direct and non-apologetic side has taken some time, but I love it. It's really fun.
What were the challenges for this adaptation?
Well, it's a long play if you don't cut it. It's 4 hours long. It's produced once every 10-15 years or something maybe, and people don't tend to cut it that much. And I kind of, I want to go to the theatre and I want to open the theatre up to people who are used to, I don't know, maybe whose demands on the theatre might be that the characters are arresting and the stories are clear and the relationships are really clear in their kind of dramatic arcs, rather than the plays being flooded with rhetoric and sort of a kind of a tone of like opera. So I cut an hour and a half of material from the original play, either because I didn't feel like I understood it quickly enough. I felt like I didn't understand it at all, or I felt like it wasn't something that I felt that these people would need to express to each other in the moments that we find them. Interestingly, for the play, cutting an hour and a half of material out of a 4-hour play has taken away no story. So the story that we've got, that we're performing in the Swan Theatre next door, is exactly the same story as the 4-hour uncut version. It's just people have to get to the point quicker, which makes the stakes of the world feel a bit higher, and it makes it emotionally much more intense, I think, because everything happens at a kind of brisk pace. So that's obviously a challenge, because you can't just go into a play like that and hope that it's going to just hold together. So there was lots of little tweaks and stitches and reworkings and moments of just kind of having to make a cut work. And also, like, Thomas Otway, the writer, he's interested in characters and relationships. He doesn't seem to be as interested in like the actual nuts and bolts of storytelling. So we've had to invent a few sequences and moments to tell the story about why scene B happens after scene A, because it's not necessarily clear just reading the script. So there's a few kind of bits of script engineering that we've had to do. and it's the kind of play that takes weeks to really get under the skin of, for the actors to really inhabit those characters and to really know what is driving them psychologically. And that's always a challenge in a play about loss and a play about hope and love and things that are thematically human and complex and therefore worth talking about.
What was it like working with Prasanna, him being the director?
Prasanna is a wonderful director, really, really inclusive. He's an actor, so he knows how we all feel, and so very much he cares for what you think. He's open to your suggestions for the character, and his attention to detail is incredible. And sometimes you'll do something and he'll say, "What about this?" And you'll go, "He's hit it. He's absolutely right." So he's great. What an actor needs from a director is guidance. You read the script, you know where you think you want to go, but you need just that little bit of pointing along the map, and that's what he's great at, because he's an actor and because he's so good. And with this play, he's had this vision for 8 or 9 years. He's wanted to do this play, so he not only cares about it passionately as an actor, but he cares passionately as a director, and is giving all of us so much leeway, but also guidance, which is so important.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. He's so brilliant. And I think with Prasanna, he is an actor as well, so he gets it. So when he sees you struggling with something or trying to understand something, he can very, very easily empathise. And so his notes and the way that he works is so holistic, and he's got no ego, and he's fantastic.
How has it been like working with the other cast members? Anybody we should look out for?
Well, Mike Grady Hall and Jodie McNee play the leads, and this is Mike's debut as a lead player here at the Royal Shakespeare Company, even though this is his 10th show. So he's a huge experienced actor, and he's now saddling up and playing a lead. Jodie McNee is back at the Royal Shakespeare Company, having played the lead in a Shakespeare play in this theatre maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and both of them play our lead couple. Stephen Fuel, who is making his RSC debut, is playing the friend of Jaffir, Pierre, who is another revolutionary character in the play. Les Dennis is in the play. Les is playing Jodie's father. Les is actually Jodie's uncle, which is how we got to know that he was potentially interested in doing the project. And Les is a wonderful actor, and as you know, he comes from a kind of background of comedy and presenting, and in this he's playing a tragic role, which is really exciting for me. I think it's quite exciting for him. It's a new journey for him, and it's brilliant to see him do it. It's really great. And we've got a wonderful company, Natalie Dew, who is playing Aquilina, who is a courtesan, and John Hodgkinson, who plays a senator who I think would give Trump a bit of a run for his money. And we've got an incredible group of actors who are playing conspirators and senators and peopling this world, and there's 18 of them, and they're all brilliant.
It's great. We have a wonderful company, and most of the company are in both plays, the Provoked Wife and Venice Preserved. So we bonded from day one, and then in the second week of rehearsals, we started rehearsing both plays at the same time. So then came in Jodie, who I already clearly knew, Mike Grady Hall, and also Stephen Fuel. So as a group of people, as a group of actors, I used to always work on my own as a comic. You're used to going round the country, working men's clubs, cabaret clubs, sitting in a dressing room on your own. What's great about being part of a company is you really are a family. For the whole summer, we are here. We kind of get together. We go to the Dirty Duck for a drink after the show, and I can go knocking on some of the doors because people live in Stratford, and we're all other members have kids as well, so we're all catching up with each other. So that's what I love about theatre, about company life.
Going back to the 80s, I think seeing everybody get into their wigs has been such a highlight. It's the most excited I've ever been to see the whole design of the show in such a long time, because we all have sort of vague memories of the 80s, but the size of the hair and the perms and the lipstick and the colours and it's hideous and fantastic all in one. And everybody looks amazing, and it's so pleasing visually to see. It's the best looking show I've seen in a long time.
Can you touch upon a little about the costumes?
So they're all very wide, so nobody can really get through any doors. They are all made of synthetic materials, so everything's highly flammable. But weirdly, everyone suits it. It's not like everyone looks bad. Everyone looks fantastically fierce. But you'll have to see it. But it's dazzling to look at.
Besides any leeway and guidance, what's the element of improvisation when performing live?
Improvisation, I wouldn't say comes into a play like this. Although, having said that, John Hodgkinson, who plays Antonio, does get a little bit of a chance to kind of break the fourth wall and talk to the audience and do a bit of improv. But I think, it's very much a wonderful piece of thrilling drama from a writer that not so many people are aware of. The genius of Thomas Otway is that it is structured so beautifully that you don't mess around with the language. The language is so good, and if you were to improvise, you would be bringing today's language into Otway's 17th century language, and that's not really relevant.
You're also, besides Venice Preserved, you're also performing for the play The Provoked Wife. What keeps you going? What's your schedule like? How do you look after your sleeping patterns, your diet?
Yeah, all of that's sort of gone out the window. At the minute, I eat a lot of breaded foods just to sort of keep going, and a lot of sleep, a lot of water, sleep when you can. But a lot of it is just vocal rest. So I'm trying not to speak until 12 o'clock the next day, and watching a lot of Netflix when I get in, I think really helps me as an actor.
My preparation for Priuli is, I'm a father anyway, and I have a daughter, so for me, I can tap into that love for my own daughter. And also, the fact that Jodie is my niece makes my research. I've been researching all my life, in the sense, or rather all her life, because I've known her since she was a child. She came, and when she was at Drama Centre in London, she stayed with me. So that connection between us, we are actually, uncle and niece, but we are, she's my sister's daughter. So that family bond is already there. When it comes to actually kind of researching and preparing as a senator, I've got to kind of give a stature. I've got to be imposing, and that's something that you look at with the movement director, and you look at with the voice. The wonderful Kate Godfrey has helped, because Priuli has a voice that has to really command. So I've had all the help. That's the great thing about being at the RSC. They give you all the help that you possibly could need as an actor. So my prep has been just the rehearsal process and learning with the wonderful access I have to help here.
Finally, what can audiences who will be coming to see Venice Preserved in Royal Shakespeare Company's Swan Theatre, what can they expect?
I don't think it's not like anything I've ever seen. I think people who come to see something at the Royal Shakespeare Company have an image or a perception of what the show will be. It doesn't feel like an old show. Yes, okay, some of it's written in a certain way, but it's so exciting and so gripping, and it's like a Ryan Gosling film in terms of it is very Blade Runner, it's very Gotham, it's very Black Mirror, it's very electric, and while it's not a comedy, it is so gripping. I think it's like watching an incredible 80s film. That's what it feels like.
For anyone interested, why should people come and watch Venice Preserved in Royal Shakespeare Company's Swan Theatre?
I think anybody that comes to see Venice Preserved will be thrilled. They will see a kind of noir, kind of almost filmic, it really is cinematic piece of theatre that taps into 80s dress, fashions, and also the kind of the likes of the films of like Blade Runner, and also they will see a beautifully written piece of theatre from the 17th century that suddenly comes alive and seems really relevant. You know, with everything that's going on in the world, in our country right now, this play speaks volumes. It's a fantastic night out. It's something that is thought-provoking. You'll come away kind of, it's a tragedy, so you'll come away kind of filled with lots of emotions, and I think you'll talk about it forever.
I think people should see this play because it reminds me of the world that we might be heading towards. Every week our news is filled with stories of unrest, of a kind of sense of a ripple going through the country. I've said this before, and like this will not be in any way clearly not an isolated experience, but the day that the Brexit referendum vote happened, I was in Brighton and got kind of racially abused twice, like in the train station and by the beach in the middle of the day. And I kind of think that's in that city. That was a kind of a surprising thing. I was just there for the day. There was this kind of like opening up of legitimacy of these kind of voices, of these kind of dark voices surrounding racism and otherness. And this play is about what happens when that goes unchecked, when power has total control over people, where there's no real true kind of progressive free-thinking spirit, and people are forced to make decisions that are perilous. So it's a window onto a world that we really don't want to be heading towards, and it also depicts political shapes and structures that absolutely remind us of the world that we are currently in. So politicians who essentially completely lack a moral compass, are not really interested in the lives of people, and for whom the political world is a space for personal advancement and for being able to behave in ways that are completely selfish and continue in that behaviour totally unchecked. I just think that's the world that we're living in now. And this is a play from 350 years ago. And so the rhythms of these classical plays in the mouths of people today, in a telling like this, which is essentially kind of contemporary dystopian, it's just a way for us to explore things that are happening in our lives in a dramatic context.